So first and foremost, I'm going to reiterate a couple of things we were just chatting about, Jen. Thank you first and foremost for being on and sharing with our population, within the public. A couple of weeks back, my wife Tracy and I did a version of these questions on a fairly sensitive topic for her, and again, the questions and the process that we're going to go through today is really just a series of questions that I've acquired through my mentors, from Tony Robbins to Neiman Ramani to John DeMartini to Garrett J. White, and it's really just a series of questions that I use on a daily basis. I use it obviously within groups like you and I participate in, not only for me to get through very, very difficult emotions, triggers, and decisions in life, and that's what we did last time with Tracy. We went through this process. I mean, when you're triggered and you're frustrated and you're angry or you're resentful and there's just little things that are getting in your way, they become distractions that occupy, or I want you to consider they become distractions that occupy your time from getting where we want to go in life. And you and I have had many of these conversations, Jen. You know how much energy that we can put into stuff, if you will, that just takes us off the track that we want to go. And you have gone deeply into this work, so intimately you understand kind of the process. For those that don't understand this process, I think today is going to be a fun exercise, because it's literally the same series of questions that Tracy and I went through, only in quantum physics or in energy medicine, and in what we call it back at Mind Fit. What I want people to consider is that most experiences that we have in life are happening or occurring for us, not to us or at us. And often what happens is we associate our previous experiences and emotions that we attach to those, and then we see the experience that's happening to us and we assign it as negative or positive, and then we judge it. And then we look for evidence to support the current story that's been brewing in us for a long period of time, which gets us off base. Now, if that's a negatively charged emotional story, well, you know where that leads us. But at the same time, if we can balance stories we perceive as negative and we can see the benefits and the gifts that are coming out of that, that's half of what we call the Patriot Missile Game. So the reason why I named it kind of masculinely the Patriot Missile Game is that when there's this little missile that's coming into your head and it's occupying space, we want to send a little missile up and go poof, and then back online, right? The same thing, I want people to just consider that there are times where we are so elated, we're so grateful, we're so excited about something, we've got somebody on a pedestal, and all we can see is the wonderful things and this huge amounts of energy. And what has become more obviously true over the years for me is that the more that I allow something to go high, the harder sometimes that I fall. And in this particular exercise, what we're going to do today for those people that are out there watching this is that the more grounded we can be, when you have a negative emotional experience, the quicker you can see the gift and come back to your normal fluctuation. And instead of going into severe elation, so that we're going massive ups and downs, the more we can balance these energies, the more we can stay focused in life. That's Mind Fit. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take an experience, a thought, a story that you have, Jen. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that significant positive energy, and instead of staying in not that we don't want to experience happiness and joy. That's not the point of this, is to get rid of emotion. The point is that energy, when it's not utilized in a way that we push it forwards, that positive energy actually becomes wasted energy in our environment. And I think that anybody that's listening to this can have a vague understanding of what that's like. Like if you were to take your best days, and that when your hair is standing on end and you're excited and you've got all this energy, and you were to utilize it to either do something positive or to acknowledge somebody that's assisted you with getting you there or been part of the process, all we're looking for is one act one action that takes that energy and pays it forwards. And that's going to be part of the process that we're going through today. Okay, so thank you again, Jen, for participating today. And again, this isn't a Jen thing. It's not like I'm intentionally putting you on the scope. It's just,
no, I don't mind. This stuff's fun. I like it.
Easier to use an example as opposed to me just going through the process. So thank you.
For sure. This is my happy place doing this stuff. Right?
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen for those of us that are here.
You know, I was thinking about what you're talking about, you know, the highs and the lows and how culturally addicted to the sensation of happy we are.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and it's an impossible thing to hang on to. You can't hang on to any of it. Right. And when we get attached to it and we start climbing with vigor in desperation for happiness, it really provides a big opportunity for like a real darkness afterwards.
That's it.
Right.
And the gifts that come from the challenges, we don't get the happiness without experiencing the struggle is part of it. And there's always going to be these fluctuations, and our society, I want people to consider anyway, like you now kind of have come to see, is that our addiction to always experiencing joy and happiness is kind of where we get left out, and not being able to see the actual joy in going into the struggle is I think the piece that gets missed. So again, today I'm going to ask you a series of questions, Jen, and this is again, in no way am I a counselor in any way. These are just a series of questions that I've learned to ask myself, and I encourage you, if you're following along, to write them down. If after this process you would appreciate a copy of the questions, you're welcome to it. I have it in the PDF form that you see in front of you. And I'm glad to share this with you. So all I ask you to do is, if you're following this today, if you're following this in a replay later, you are welcome to email me at drryan@backfit.ca, and I would be glad to share this with you. Okay, so today I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I will bring this down. And today's first question for you, Jen, is what is the experience that we're going through today? What has happened to bring up the positive emotional feeling, if you will?
Well, it's a combination of things, right? As probably many people, and I'll just speak for myself, you know, COVID been some dark days, right? And I've been a part of the Freedom Group from pre-COVID, we'd started, and then we've been going as a cohort through all of the changes and whatnot. And the part that speaks to me for today was just, I mean, like a very deep desperation of needing a schedule, of feeling like things were chaotic, that I had no time. Everything just felt so overwhelming. And my fantasy, my hope was that somebody would come in and say, look, this is what you need to do. 1, 2, 3, done, and all will be well. Right. And that, like, I craved a savior, right? You know, someone to fix it for me. And what happened was not that, but what I did get was all the support that I asked for, right? And the key being asked for, right? So I got the support through the group, and no hand holding. And what I'm grateful for is the opportunity to, instead of finding the savior, you know, like getting that from out externally, I had like an awakening, and I'm like, I am going to save myself, right? And I learned to go in and it's not from out there. And I am incredibly grateful for the support through the darkness, and that nobody, I know it might sound strange, but that nobody came running up with a solution for me, other than just keep showing up, keep doing the work, do your core 4, one step, next step, do the, like, just, you got to process through stuff. And I feel like the resiliency that has come out of, you know, some of my darker days, you know, and then now, the confidence I feel within myself to be able to navigate yet another wave of whatever happens in the future, or, you know, I feel much more in control of my emotional world, or at least I know how to regain grounding. And so I am very grateful for the support that I've had to discover my own strength.
Awesome. And if I can summarize that,
Yep.
I believe the story that you're telling is that you got support from the group you participated in, but you learned to empower your life.
Yeah.
Your own life. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's
yeah. And the word resiliency keeps coming up, right, for me. And the PMG often shows us our resiliency when we have to, which those questions will come up in the future while we're doing this. But, as we have to revisit when we've experienced something before and we've gotten through it or whatever. So just, I feel way more resilient than I did 2 months ago.
Cool. Awesome.
Just life.
So that's the next question I was going to ask. That's logically the next question that we ask in this is, what is the feeling that comes up? Now I hear the word resiliency, but
no, that's not.
Are you able to articulate that into a feeling for you?
First thing that comes to mind is confidence, and not like confidence I'm strutting around, but confidence that I can handle things. I can handle things, and all the work we've been doing around looking at, previous situations and moving forward, it's like I can see all the things that I've handled in my life and gotten through, and yet again through COVID, and as we've been experiencing this chaos, and living in the circus here, that, I'm just deepening that confidence that, I have the tools I need within, and also like willing to adapt to, right? Like take in new tools. And so confidence that I can reach out, I can get the help I need, I can develop new systems, I can change, I can pivot, and when we can do those things, right? Like when I can adapt to the world around me and stay in alignment with my values, I feel fucking great.
Oh, that's it. No, I get it. Trust me, I get it. So the reality of it is that you developed a confidence. And so if I can switch this on you for a second, what happens is when we do this as a negative, what we do is we are so bought into some of our stories that we're constantly looking for evidence to support it, right? So part of this exercise asks you to look at, well, where am I doing the thing that's getting in my way, like when we're projecting onto others, or what is the opposite of the story that I'm telling? So oftentimes we would ask you to ask us or tell a story that would be the opposite. So when we do this as a positive, here's a challenge that I want you to do, because I'm not sure that we've actually gone through this way. You just told us a story that you got support from the freedom group that we do. You've learned to empower your life. You've got this resiliency and this confidence. I want you just for a second, this is part of the Patriot Missile Game. I want you to come up with a story that's the opposite of that. If you had to tell a story that's the opposite, because I want you to consider it for a second.
It's the story I said for the first, 2 months, right? The first 2 months into all of this was just like, I can't. There's no time. I'm not strong enough. I'm not focused enough. I have no help. There's just, I can't. It's impossible. I can't. Like that was the mantra. And then every time you turn around, it's all that supporting evidence. It's like, well, no, of course I can't. See, look, I can't. And today, absolutely nothing has changed other than this. And all of a sudden I have time. I can make it happen. I can. And literally nothing has changed but my attitude.
And it's so easy. You know what? I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say that. And then I sit there because I haven't gone through the steps and I haven't gone through the processes within my head and the stories and the underlying emotions and the feelings. And I'm like, I don't get it. You've gone through this for about 6 months. And so to be able to say that the only thing that's changed is my mindset is 6 months of mindset, not
Yeah. That's right. It wasn't overnight. It was not overnight, definitely.
Yeah. So I just wanted to justify that. Okay. So the second story that I think that I heard you say is that I can't. I'm not strong enough. I don't have the time.
I can't manage my time. I can't regulate my emotions. I just can't. I can't handle it.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah. Overwhelmed, and then nothing can happen.
So this falls very in line with the third story that I like people to consider, myself included, is what, I think you said it on the offset. I think the should story that you are telling yourself is that somebody should come along and save me.
Yeah.
Somebody should come along and tell me exactly what to do, and then everything would be golden and the grass would be green and the birds would chirp. Is that not kind of what I was hearing?
I should have a parent who, a grandparent. I should have family support. I should have some unlimited cup of energy within myself that can make everything happen without being upset about it. I should be able to homeschool.
You should be more than you are.
Yes, because this is not good enough.
Yeah, okay, good. Got it. So if you're listening to this and you're kind of following through, there's a couple of different stories that I like to consider when I'm running through emotional baggage that's in my head, if you will, whether it's positive or negative. There's the current story that I'm telling myself, or the interpretation of what it is that I see in front of me through my values and through my lens. The second story is kind of, it's either, if you're judging someone else, it's just a mirror. Where am I doing this? Because when we ignore the fact that we're doing it, we are. That's where our judgments actually come from most of the time, I want you to consider. The other way of looking at the second story is look at the opposite of the first story that we just told, and that's what we just did with Jen. The third story is, what do you think should be occurring? It's just another way of looking at things, and oftentimes I have learned to look at what are my fears. So if it is a struggle that you're experiencing, like Jen was saying, I don't think that I've got enough time. I've been limited by my upbringing, my parental experience, my skill sets, etc. You'll typically fall on the fear side. And the other side of things, sometimes we project our issues onto someone else. And it could be that somebody isn't prioritizing my values, or that I should be more, or someone else should be more, or it's a combination of these. These are the types of things I want you to consider when doing those stories.
Well, like my husband should be more aware of what I need. My kids should be more respectful of my boundaries. All this shit. I'm like,
particularly the 3-year-old, right?
I know, right? That's all projection because, I need to take care of what I need. I need to take care of my boundaries. So listen, yep.
When we go through this process particularly with a negative emotion, it's really important to be able to see where some of those emotional experiences are creating the stories that we're telling ourselves today. It's just a process. So you'll see that in the script here under negative emotion. We did that with Tracy last time. Today it's slightly different. So I'm going to go through the positive emotional breakdown, and I want you just to consider the following questions, Jen. For where you're at today, you explained to me that you've been given support, but you've really been empowered to take control of your life again. The first question is, considering everything you've been through, who are the people, places, or things that you could experience or express gratitude for? And please, this is not a thank you, Dr. Ryan thing. I want you to open the floodgates, because ultimately there's more than just me involved in this process for you. So who, if you consider like just a big whiteboard, out of your head, who could you express gratitude for where you're at today versus 6 months ago?
Well, we'll start with you, Dr. Ryan Doyle. So thank you.
I will acknowledge it, and thank you.
Yes. Okay, so tons of gratitude there. My mother-in-law, whose house I'm at right now, is an outstanding human being, and so I'm incredibly grateful for her. My husband has been nothing but supportive all the way along. He's never tried to hold me back from anything. He's just like, you go, baby, you do whatever you need to do. I got your back. What do you need? You just tell me what you need. And that's another thing, is taking control of saying what I need, figuring that out so that it's not up to other people to figure it out. So I'm really grateful for him. He's always right there, ready to respond and support. So that's wonderful. And my kids are amazing, despite all my bitching and complaining about them. They're really good.
It's been understandable.
Yeah, right. They're really, really good kids. I have incredible women in my life, inclusive of the women that I've met in the Freedom Group. And so those relationships have been really profound, and I'm very grateful for them. Oh my goodness, my friends, my community. I live in a townhouse complex, and so there's only 14 units, and they're real tight sense of community, and I'm just so grateful. We've all been just incredibly supportive of each other, And most of all, and I know I always trying to not sound egotistical, but I'm really grateful for myself for keep coming back, because I wanted to drop out like quite a few times. You know, I wanted to ditch it, and I was just like, I can't be bothered. I don't have time. I can't, right? I can't do this. And I didn't. And yeah, you know, if you push through some of all those resistance pieces, and so I'm really grateful.
Awesome. You did great with that list. And oftentimes people, myself included, have a very difficult time expressing or thinking about where our gratitude comes from. And most importantly, self. So part of the next part of this process, and most people going through this, I find, skip this piece. I want you to consider not doing it, because you just hit on it a little bit. So you've gone through and have a better, I think, a bigger understanding of where a lot of our emotional baggage comes from, is from our past experiences, but we relive it constantly until we engage it. We keep running away from it or sedating away from it. And you've been asked to step into a lot of that. Mm-hmm. Okay. But and you've also, I believe, have grown a stronger relationship with that little girl that's still inside of you, that experienced traumas and wounds and all kinds of things, that has still quite an emotional charge. Mm-hmm. You listen to the tone of your voice, and if I had never met you, you can still hear the little girl popping up inside of you, but you have a better relationship with her now, I think, than you did in the past. So when you get to this place, this is the one of the most amazing opportunities that we have as humans, is to just go, holy cow, I still do have that 8-year-old inside of me, and he or she is still trying to talk to me a little bit. So when you have these moments of gratitude, I encourage anybody that's listening to this, on top of yourself, Jen, is just making sure that you're actually just acknowledging self too, connecting back with your own inner child that's inside of you that just needs to be seen. Because oftentimes we're looking for the external validation of our greatness and our goodness, and most of the time it usually just needs to come from where, Jen? Yeah, from self. Yeah. Just acknowledging ourselves is a difficult task. It's in our society, it's not encouraged, taught, or applauded in men. No. But in most of us, we're starting to disengage, and we're starting to get more focused in the external reward system, and not back into the internal reward system. So part of this process, you guys, if you're listening and following through, is just actually acknowledging yourself, connecting back with the little person that's inside of you. And if you can imagine, you know, yourself at 7, 5, 12, that little boy or that little girl that went through some of the difficult experiences that has gotten you to be part of who you are today, just acknowledge and appreciate them. Mm-hmm. That is an important part of the process, I think, that many people don't
It's very it's vulnerable, and it can get confused with feeling like there's a weakness, and it's not. There's so much strength that comes out of, because if we don't bring forward what is unconscious from the darkness, you know, from where we're trying to hide from, it will run our lives whether we want it to or not.
That's it.
Like it's either going to run your life with you acknowledging things, or it's going to run life unconsciously.
That's it. And
those are the options.
You and I have talked a lot about this. It's like there's little computer programs that are running and consuming our energy in our brain, and our actual brain has a tiny little bit of space in there, just trying to do everything that it possibly can while all these computer programs, and we're wondering why our computer is running so slowly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, let's do some of the proactive work. In the Patriot Missile game, we reframe the story. So we look at all the different stories that are out there. Then we realign with ourselves. So this next part is called the realignment, and then we're going to respond by taking action is the third part of this. So now that we're kind of getting clear with where a lot of this stuff is coming from, remind me, Jen, what are your top 3 to 5 values again?
Right now, growth, vulnerability, connections, and courage.
Awesome. Okay, and if you are able to keep it to a sentence or two, your current working mission statement is?
Well, the really abbreviated version is to get my shit together so I can help other people get theirs together.
You're on a journey of self-improvement.
That's right.
So that you can assist others with working through their self-improvement.
That's exactly right.
So I want you to consider a different story, just another story, because it's going to be the fourth one we're going to tell today, about where you are with life. Your first one was that you got support, but you've learned to empower yourself. If we look at your values of growth, vulnerability, connection, and courage, and that you're on a journey of self-improvement, self-empowerment, such that you can help others with their own journey to this place, is there a slightly different story that you would like to consider about where you're at today? And I can assist you with this.
I'm feeling a little
stuck on that one.
Yeah, well, going live is different. I feel like I need to keep talking. I need a minute.
I'll assist you with this only because ordinarily I would pull it out of you.
I know.
Okay, so what I want anybody that's listening to this, when we're talking about this, is I just want you to consider a story at all times that's actually aligned with who you are. Oftentimes we're telling stories that are completely detached, and the emotions that we experience are basically just telling us that, hey, Jen, hey, Ryan, hey, Dave, Sally, Steve, hey, you are off your purpose. You're being distracted by whatever is going on over there. It's totally misaligned with who you are. So a story that I could tell based on what I know about you,
I'm kind of putting something together here. And so maybe I'll take a stab at it and then.
You want to go?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I like to include my value words when I redo things because it just dials it in. So, you know what I was saying? I started with, I'm grateful for my experience with the group because I've learned how to empower myself. So because through building connection with people who are sharing with vulnerability and commitment to process and committed to growth, the experience of putting myself in a position that's in alignment with my values has afforded me the freedom to grow yet again, right? Like, I don't really think that there's much opportunity for those kinds of changes without, connection and vulnerability and courage, community, right? Some people to share a journey with, to know that I'm not alone in the struggles, right? You've
nailed on a couple of things. Like, you got to remember one of your primary values is connection. But what happens is, I think that before we even engaged in these conversations, Jen, I think you had a story that you were all alone in your SH1T. Mm-hmm. And you're not the only person that thinks that. Mm-hmm. Many of us are burning our life down. We're dying a little bit on the inside because, like, life is great. We've got houses and jobs and kids and it looks pretty. But on the inside, there's a piece of us that are dying and we don't know how to have that conversation because who the heck do we have that conversation with? So we actually think we're alone.
Because it's my story before was just keep being grateful. I have an amazing husband. I have beautiful kids. I live in a nice house. I just have to be more grateful. If I'm just more grateful, then I won't feel like I'm dying.
The word grateful for me for a long time was a negative because I was like, I don't see it. Right? So I think what I heard you say, and these were not your words, but I just kind of jotted down the flow of it, was that through the obstacles, the connection, the growth, you have grown such that you can share with others. Is I kind of think what I heard out of all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for everybody that's listening, anytime you've got a hard decision to make, you've been triggered by someone, something, or you just had a wonderful day and you just want to process it, to come up with an action step so you're not wasting that energy or being distracted by negative energy, I want you to consider the 4 stories that we come up with in this process. Today, Jen, if I can reiterate, story number 1 was that you got support from this freedom group that we do. You learned to empower your life. That was number 1. Number 2 is, I can't. I'm not strong enough. I don't have enough. Number 3 is, well, I should, I should have had the skills and the tools. I should have had more parental experience. I should have. And the fourth story I heard you say was the one that we just came up with, was through the obstacles, the growth, and the connection you've had in participating in this particular group, I've grown such that I can ultimately share some of my hard-earned skills, life skills, with others. So my question for you is, of those four stories, which one do you choose? And this is empowering, folks, because ultimately there's going to be days where it's up to you. You can choose whichever one of those you want to spend and invest time on. But which one is the one that you're going to choose for the sake of the
Well, I have sat at the end of the PMG where you have to choose and debated between the should story and the align story, because there's sometimes resistance to those positive changes, which is really kind of ironic that, anyway, so definitely number 4 though.
Awesome. Okay.
I mean, everything I'm doing in my life is in alignment with number 4.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do then is fast forward a year from now. I want you now that we've kind of come through all the emotional part of this, and if you ever find yourself in the middle of this and you still find yourself emotionally triggered, it's hard to do the next part because it actually requires your logical brain. Okay, so what I want you to do now is fast forward a year from now, Jen. What would you love to create with respect to the process that you've named today is, learning to empower your life? What would you love to create? And you're already engaging in this, and this is what what we've been working on outside of this. But what is it a year from now that you would like to see happen?
Well, first is I've applying, it's not quite finished yet, to do my master's in counseling. And I want to be rocking that.
Awesome.
So, I mean, I'm not in yet. 1 year within, that's it.
Okay. And what are you noticing just from the questions that we've gone through just in this experience, not the other stuff we've done, just the questions today and going through this process? What are you noticing? What is anything come up for you? Any epiphanies, any lessons, decisions that have come out of just answering the questions?
I always think it does me a favor to revisit letting go of attachments to happy. And that's a really important thing for me to keep top of mind, and that to be more focused on contentment than happiness. It's less fleeting. So that's always a good reminder. That's going to stick out from today.
That's a difficult one, what you just said.
It sure is.
A lot of people are going to get stuck on that comment.
I know. Don't even throw the word happy out there and then start to argue it. People are like, but happy, you deserve happy. I'm like, no, you have to earn it. And then it's going to go.
It's so much easier to follow.
Yeah,
so listen,
that's standing out.
I'm going to summarize for a second, because ultimately if you're following along and you're going through this experience for yourself, I want you to consider that every time you go through these series of questions, something will pop. It'll click. You might go through an old childhood experience 6-7 times, and then all of a sudden you're like, really, I'm experiencing this again. Okay. There's little things that come out of just asking yourself questions. And again, I don't want you to consider this therapy. It's just a series of questions that if you actually have legitimate mental health concerns or anxiety, I mean, deal with a counselor. And this is hopefully, Jen, what you're going into. Yeah. The reality of it is every time I go through these series of questions, I get an aha, and I'm curious as to what you might find by going through the questions. So I'm going to summarize, just to keep this as succinct as I'm able to, based off your values: growth, vulnerability, connection, and courage, and that your mission statement of through the obstacles, growth, connection that you have grown through, you are growing such that you can share this with others. The chosen story is essentially that you have experienced a tremendous amount of growth just by diving in, and now you're actually taking action such that you can share it with others, which is super inspiring. The lesson or the epiphany that I heard you say was that it's sometimes important to go through and really re-examine that attachment to happy. And because when we do that, we fluctuate very up and down.
Then I feel like a bipolar crazy person.
And
because I'm just like
everybody in your world experiences bipolar crazy you, right? Yeah. And what you wanted to create, I believe I heard you say, is you are now aligning your values in such a way that you can go and share this with others by applying to your postgraduate work that you're doing or that you're applying for right now. So my question is, and again, when you do the positive version of this, I want you to consider the action step can be aligned with, well, if you weren't applying to these schools, it could be that. I also want you to consider that the action step you could take is actually acknowledging somebody. It could just be a text message, a video message, a telephone call, a letter, a handwritten something, a note, sticky note. If there is somebody that has popped up in this process for you, that just acknowledging them and taking 30 seconds to acknowledge them, I want you to imagine what that feels like on the opposite side. It's very rare when it occurs, but everybody I think that's listening to this knows what it feels like when seemingly randomly somebody simply acknowledges them. So my question for you, and this is a wide open board because ultimately it's up to you to make the decision, is if this was you going through the process on your own, you weren't doing this vulnerably in front of everybody else, what do you feel would be the one action you could do to create what you want?
To create what I want? Well, honestly, it's just what is happening for me right now is just thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey alongside our journey. I mean, like, we've gone through COVID chaos together, right? As a group and with you as our trusted leader, and, and watching you be open about nobody's perfect and we're all working on our stuff. And thank you. Thank you for working all day, all night and doing all the stuff you're doing to make this happen. And I know it's not easy. I can't even imagine trying to put all the content together and all of that. And then, so thank you.
You're welcome. Any other actions that you would take?
Oh, I just buy everybody flowers.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, if you guys are listening to this, I'm going to go back just for a second. When you go through the positive part of the emotion and you look at who can you express your gratitude for, it asks, what is your action associated with that? That's where I want you to consider someone, something. Now, Jen's chosen me today, but it could be anybody. And just acknowledging people who have assisted you to get to the experience that you're feeling today is a powerful experience. This one down in here.
And I just want to say it does feel vulnerable. It feels vulnerable because often the people that help us can quite often be people we don't know well. And it feels vulnerable to figure out a way that feels kind of emotionally safe and good, but also wanting to tell somebody thank you that you maybe not quite comfortable with doing that. And I think just learning through experience that there's very few people who don't like a little bit of recognition.
And that's it. And some of us, like me, I used to presume that if you were saying thank you to me, my brain would switch it automatically and ask, what are you wanting from me? It's a weird switch, but a lot of us have that. And I had to go through many different processes just to actually sit and take acknowledgement. It took me a long time to get to that point. You did great today, Jen. Thank you. Last but not least, just something I want you to consider as well. At the end of doing this type of exercise, I want you to consider, here at BackFit, we talk about MindFit. This is a MindFit exercise. We talk about Spine Fit, getting treated, doing your foams at home. We talk about Get Fit, doing some form of activity. We talk about NutriFit, doing something that fuels you from the inside. I want you to consider each day, if you were to do a process like this and work on MindFit, work on pushing positive energy forwards or reframing stuff that you've been triggered by, and then looking at those 4 areas so that you could actually make sure that your body is fueled as high as possible. It's an interesting thing what 6 months of habits will do.
And I would like to promise everybody that's watching, if you've made it this far, that I have no family support and 2 little kids, and I'm home full time with them, and my husband works a lot. And I believed I had no time. And I get these things done every day.
And you rock it.
It's just, I made time instead of standing in my kitchen surfing crap that doesn't matter or pacing around, picking up the toys yet again, I skipped it. I was like, you know what? A little bit of mess is okay. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do me first.
That's it. Mm-hmm. And actually acknowledging yourself for that is a huge. Jen, listen, I just want to say thank you. I'm going to, we're going to roll this out, and I hope that those of you that are listening and that listen to this later have benefited from Jen's experience and going through this process. Jen, thank you once again.
Yeah,
appreciate you so much for taking the time and the energy out of your day to come and play with us today.
Awesome. It's fun. It's always fun. Even when it's hard, it's fun.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Jen, thank you, and bye-bye for now.
Take care.